Alright, bring it in for a berry hug. I got a good one for you today. I always loved Airsoft. Even before I got myself an Airsoft gun, I always wanted to play. I'd look up videos and watch other people do it. There was even a point where I would build my own Airsoft guns out of Bic pencils, and I would go to my friend's house and use those while they were shooting me with little clear dinky Walmart things. When I was 16, I finally saved up to get myself my very first Airsoft gun. After doing a bunch of research, I settled on the Smith & Wesson M4505. It was a spring pistol, you had to cock it back every single time, but it was powerful. So generally, when I went airsofting, I would do it with my friends Nick and Gage, and we would just go out into the woods, find ourselves a spot, go airsofting for a little bit, and then come back. Well, one day, Nick comes up to me and tells me that he just met a guy named Charles. Now, Charles wasn't all there. He was a nice guy, don't get me wrong, but you could just tell by looking at him, he wasn't all there. So we meet up over at Charles' house, we introduce ourselves, and we start playing Airsoft. Now, this guy had a hell of a backyard. His entire backyard was an Airsoft setup. He had big balloons that you could hide behind, like those paintball balloons. He had a tree house that you could go up and use as a base. There must have been about 20 to 50 kids here, all just running around in this backyard, just having a good time. We'd set ourselves up into teams and we'd go for it. We must have spent about 3 hours just picking each other off one by one. There was a point where I was up in the treehouse peeking over and popping people, and this sniper saw me. One of the points where I reach up and lift over, he shot at me, missed me, but hit the barrel of my gun, knocked the orange tip completely off the thing, and now, I couldn't find it after that. My gun was now technically illegal. I could have spray painted it, but that would have made it look like crap. I wasn't going to do that. So it was about lunchtime, we're all just sitting around, and we realized that Gage's shotgun that he had brought started acting up. It was this dinky Walmart clear shotgun, and every so often when he would go to pump it and shoot, the clip would fall out of it. So what he would do was he would pick the clip up, pop it up in there, cock the gun, and then fire upside down to make it fire. And that was like the last 3 shots. This thing was a mess. It was already duct taped in 4 different spots, but Charles all of a sudden walks up and says, "Hey, you know your shotgun's messed up, right?" Gage goes, "Yeah, I know, and honestly, it's fine." Charles says, "Well, hang on a minute. I've fixed hundreds of Airsoft guns. I actually had an Airsoft shotgun that did the very same thing. I know what the problem would be, and it wouldn't be that hard to fix." Now, we don't know this guy. We don't know what qualifications Charles has to fix Airsoft guns. Maybe he does know, but Gage sat back and he was like, "Look, it's fine. It works, and I know how to operate it. I don't need to touch it." Charles was adamant. He replied, "No, dude, nonsense. Come on, give it over to me. I can fix it. I've done it before. It's really easy." And eventually Gage, he gives in. He's like, "Okay, fine, let's go fix it." So we climb up this treehouse, and we go up onto this workbench that's up there. Charles grabs the shotgun, and he starts carefully unscrewing it all down the sides. He removes the duct tape from around the thing. He then picks up the shotgun and dumps the contents out onto the table. Little screws and pieces of plastic are flying everywhere. They fly through the cracks of this house and go and fall down into the grass down at the bottom of the yard. And Gage is sitting there like, "What the hell?" Charles looks at Gage and he has the audacity to say, "Oh, no, you see, there's supposed to be a little plastic piece here and that's missing. So I wasn't going to be able to fix it anyway." It was as good as broke. Gage was pissed. And right after that point, Gage, I don't even think he took the shotgun with him. I think he just left it there. He climbs out of the treehouse. We follow him to his truck, and he took us home. Literally right after that, he was done. From that point forward, I never saw Charles ever again. We never went back to his house. We never did Airsoft with him ever again. And any time that I would bring up playing Airsoft with Gage and Nick, Gage would always say, "I can't. I don't have a shotgun. Idiot broke it." So, like I was saying, I loved playing Airsoft. Any chance I got, I would jump at the opportunity. If anyone was like, "Hey, let's go," bam, you know I'd be there. The only problem is, within city limits, it's illegal to do Airsoft. But, being a rambunctious little kid, what I realized is around 8 o'clock, the city dies. No one's outside. So if I just wait till 8 o'clock, I can go anywhere and play Airsoft with my friends. So at around that time, I would shuffle myself down to the local middle school and then I would just play there. Now mind you, this is after I had broke the orange tip off my gun. And my gun is like this black handgun. It looks real. If I had ever gotten caught with that thing, that is a hell of a fine, and I'm just lucky that nobody ever caught us while we were doing this. Not only was it illegal for me to have no orange tip on my gun, but we're out in a public schoolyard. Either way, this one day I'm sitting on the bus talking with a buddy of mine about Airsoft, and this other kid named Gage, coincidentally the same name, not the same kid, was sitting right behind me, and he was listening to the conversation. He said, "Wait a minute, you play Airsoft?" And I was like, "Yeah, all the time." He goes, "Dude, I've always wanted to play Airsoft. Do you have an extra gun or anything?" Now, I did have an extra gun. Technically, the Smith & Wesson wasn't the first one that I bought. My brother and I had gone in on these little plastic see-through Walmart ones that were about, I think, $16, so we just split the cost. He had one of them, and then I had the other, and ever since I got my Smith & Wesson, I never used the clear one ever again. So I told Gage that. I was like, "Yeah, I actually do have another one." He goes, "Well, would you sell it to me?" I was like, "You don't want to just borrow it?" He's like, "No, I want to have one so I can always do Airsoft." I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense, okay." So I think I sold it to him for about $5, which is $1 less than I bought it for. I said, "Okay, so when would you like to do Airsoft?" He goes, "Tonight." I mean, we were already on the bus ride home, and I just brought up this conversation. He's like, "Right now." I was like, "Well, okay." So generally what I do is I go up to the middle school at around 8 o'clock. He's like, "No, I can't go at 8 o'clock. We have to do it right after school." I was like, right after school is not really the best idea. He's like, "I don't care. That works for me if it works for you." And I was like, "Okay, fine. So I head back home, I grab my Airsoft guns, and I walk up back to the school, and I give him the clear one. I had some extra BBs, I had a jacket, and I put them in the front of the school, and then I was telling him basically what the rules are. Now, like I said, this is around 5 o'clock. This is way earlier than I generally show up here. And I didn't realize this, but there was a school event going on this day. Either way, the game that we were playing was Spy versus Spy. So essentially, Gage and I would split off from each other, we'd run around the school trying to find each other, and then whoever tagged the first person first, they win, and you start again. So I'm walking around the school for a little bit, looking for Gage, and I realize that there's some commotion coming from the gym. I walk up close to it so I can get a listen, and it sounds like there is a girls' basketball game going on in there, which, crap, that's not good. Now I need to give you the layout of what's going on here so that you can understand the context of what's about to happen. So the gym is in the middle of the courtyard, right in the middle of the entire school. That's where the gym is located. Now there's a ramp that goes up to the door that opens up into the gym. Now this ramp has concrete right here, and this is where I was, leaning up against the concrete. If someone came out of that door and looked straight down on this side, they would have seen me. But if they look straight down on this side, I would be invisible to them. Either way, I'm looking around and I start to hear some noise coming from the library. So I look up at the library, and on the roof there is Gage sitting there staring at me. Now I realize he sees me, so I lift my gun right up towards him, and at that very minute, the door to the gym opens up and some kid walks up against the railing and looks over. Now again, if he's on this side looking down, he's not going to see me. I'm over here. So he's looking down, and I'm looking up at Gage, and I'm frozen at this point. Like, oh crap, I'm just going to wait. Hopefully he goes back inside. I see Gage point the gun right at me, and then he looks at the kid, and he turns the gun towards the kid. I'm sitting there like, oh my god, what are you doing? And he fires and shoots the kid. I hear the kid go, ow, and he runs back inside. A couple moments later, he comes out with a buddy of his. And they're both sitting there looking around like, what in the world was that? And then there's Gage, and he shoots the other kid. Ow! And they both run inside. Now at this point, I'm sitting there like, oh my god, are you an idiot? Dude, stop! What are you doing? You're gonna get us both in trouble. Gage is up there laughing his ass off, and I'm sitting there hunched up against the concrete, hoping that nobody comes back out, and that maybe I have enough time to run back to the front of the school. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. A second after they went inside, both of them and a coach walk out onto the front steps of the gym. Gage picks up his gun, aims at the coach, and fires. And I hear the coach go, hey, you, get down here. As soon as he did that, I got up and I sprinted back towards the front of the school. And as soon as I started running, there was a kid behind me. I could hear him chasing after me. The first kid that came out started screaming my direction, and I run as fast as I can. I sprint to the front of the school, I pick up my BBs and jacket, I run down the stairs, and I start sprinting home. Now on my way home, I put the BBs in my pocket, I have the jacket all wrapped up around the gun so nobody can see it, and it turned out all of the cars that were parked up there at the school were coming down at this time, which was weird because school had just ended about an hour ago. So the fact that they were leaving means that they canceled the ball game because of this event. So I'm just sitting there walking back home, ducking and hiding my face, making sure that nobody can see me. And I finally make it back home. And as soon as I get home, I get a text from Gage. I was like, hey man, what in the hell happened? He goes, well, the coach caught me and pulled me down from the top of the library. He thought I was a middle schooler and he told me that this was very dangerous and stupid and I need to go home. I was like, wait a minute, they just let you go? And he goes, yeah, they just let me go. The next morning, I wake up and I walk back up to that middle school because that's where I had to catch the bus to take me to my high school. It was kind of a cold day, so I walk into the cafeteria, and once I get in there, all the kids in there are talking about what had happened the day before. I saw the two kids that had got shot by Gage in there telling the story. So I walked up to one of them and said, hey, wait, what happened? What's going on? The kid tells me the full story in vivid detail, and he said, I was chasing the guy. There was another guy, and I was chasing him, trying to run him down so that he'd get in trouble for what he was doing, but he got away from me, and I don't know where he went. To this day, nobody knew that it was me who was part of that situation. I was the kid who ran away when everyone else was chasing me. Honestly, it was really rewarding hearing that story. It was like there was some mystery legend Airsoft kid who got away and nobody knows who it was. Ooh. Now again, this was really dangerous because it's illegal to do Airsoft within city limits. It's illegal to not have an orange tip on your gun. And if I had been doing Airsoft and there was security there, if there was a cop there and he saw the gun, he could have totally gunned me down. He could have fined me. It could have been very dangerous. Now, I'm lucky I was 16 at the time because at that age, generally you get a little more lenience towards authority figures. So I'm just glad that I wasn't an adult. It would have been very stupid to, as an adult, go out into public with my Airsoft gun that doesn't have an orange tip, right? So a couple years ago, I'm about 22, and I went out and played Airsoft in public with my friends. It was myself, my brother, and Trevin, and we decided that it had been a really long time since we'd played Airsoft, and we'd really like to do it again. So we went down to our local park at about 8 o'clock when we figured no one else was there. Now the problem with this park is it has a pretty large homeless population in the evening time, and a lot of people go down there to use some pretty heavy drugs, and so we were a little worried about running into someone, acting a little crazy. So we drive down to one side, all the way down to the very end of the park, and when we first get there, we see this truck is sitting there with one of its doors open. There's a guy hanging out of the truck, his arm just dangling out, and it seems that there's a woman in the driver's seat holding on to him so that he doesn't fall over. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, okay, I obviously know what's going on there. We're not going to play Airsoft around here. So we turn around and we go down all the way to the other side of the park. When we get there, we see this little sedan sitting down by the water with its headlights on, and it looks like someone was sleeping in there. And so we figured, okay, we can't do it around here because we're probably going to make a lot of noise. I don't want to be shooting BBs at this guy's car and piss him off. I don't know what he's up to. Well, crap. So eventually we found a place kind of in the middle and we settled on that. In all honesty, the part of the park that we were in right now was the closest point to the local police station, but we figured that handcuffs would probably be better than puncture wounds in our spleens, so that was just a good deciding factor. So Trevin, my brother, and myself, we get out of the car, we load up our BBs, and we say, okay, this is free for all, one BB is going to kill you, go ahead and split off. So we all run in different directions, and I found this spot under this Douglas fir. Now, the moon was really bright this night, and it was illuminating all the park. But I noticed that if you were under a tree, if you were in the shade at all, you were invisible. I swear to God, I could have been dancing in this shadow and nobody would have saw me. So I was sitting under this tree waiting for any kind of movement. That's all I was looking for. Someone's got to move around at some point, and when they do, that's when I'm going to get them. So I'm sitting under this tree for about 4 minutes when I hear something kind of off in the distance behind me make this really strange noise. It sounded like this screaming sound, but it was so irregular. Sounded something like something like that. It was so weird. Now, it was far enough away that I wasn't worried about it. It sounded kind of like a goose or something, like a really pissed off goose. And if you've ever seen a goose up close, that is kind of what they sound like. So I was just like, okay, we're near a bunch of water anyway. I'm not going to worry about it. But I kept hearing it as the night would go on. So I hear it a little bit from behind me, and then all of a sudden I hear it from ahead of me too. And I'm like, okay, so there's multiple of these things. And I didn't know what it was. It almost sounded like a woman screaming, which was kind of strange. I was just like, I'm trying not to pay attention to this noise because I want to keep my head in the game, but there's something out here and it's terrifying. So there I am, like I said, under my Douglas fir, and I'm just waiting for any movement when all of a sudden I see a figure jump up and start sprinting towards me. So I stand up, I cock my gun, and I'm firing in that direction, and all of a sudden, I see my brother running from the left, sprinting across the grass, doing the same thing, shooting at me and shooting at Trev. And it turned out that was what was going on. We're all just running towards each other. We run straight up to each other, and we're basically just firing, like, point blank range at each other. And we're like, okay, wait, are we all dead? Like, what was that? Now, it felt like something was a little off. And I was like, hey, Trev, is everything okay? Like, why did you jump up and just start sprinting? And this is what he had to say. He goes, hey, were you guys hearing those weird noises? My brother and I look at each other and we're like, yeah, why? That's when he says, so I was down over there, I was under this tree, and I was just waiting for movement. I actually sat myself next to the bike path and I kept hearing this screaming noise. Now, I thought it was a woman who was like really high on meth or something and just screaming out. He said, in the moonlight, I see this creature, 4 legs, walking across the path. It comes out of the shadows into the moonlight, and then it screams right there in the middle of the road. He said that once it screamed, it scared the crap out of him, and he was reeling in his brain. What in the world is this animal? What could this be? Is it a raccoon? No, raccoons don't make that noise. Is it a skunk? No, a skunk is too small. Is it a bobcat? As soon as he made that connection, he jumps up and sprints back towards us, and that's when I got up and started shooting him with the gun. Now, David and I hear this story, and chills go up our spine, and we're sitting there like, all right, let's go find out what that thing was. So we walk back over to the tree, and we kneel down for a little bit, and we're waiting, hoping that maybe we'll see this creature again. I was curious, and if it's a bobcat, it's not going to come after 3 dudes. There's no way. So we're sitting there for about 10 minutes under this tree, not talking, not saying anything, not even whispering to each other. We're just scanning the area, trying to see if maybe this creature is going to come out again. After 10 to 15 minutes, I stood up and I was like, I don't think they're going to call out anymore. I think you scared it off. And right after that, we hear the scream. As quick as we could, we lift our flashlights and we point it in the direction of the noise, and we see this vague gray creature running towards the bushes. My brother and Trevor and I sprint towards the bushes, and as soon as we get up to these blackberries, we're looking in there trying to see anything, trying to get an outline of these creatures at all. And all of a sudden, we shine our lights, and there are 8 different eyes staring back at us. Now, we're sitting there looking at it, and it didn't terrify us because the way their eyes were, they were so narrow. I was like, that has to be kind of a smaller creature. It was really hard in the bushes to determine what kind of outline these things were. And after a while, we got bored, and we're like, okay, let's just go back home and maybe do some research and find out what this thing is. When I first saw their eyes, I was a little worried that they might have been coyotes, but they just looked too small, so I knew that they couldn't be that. I was like, okay, it's not raccoons, it's not squirrels, it's definitely not a bobcat, and I'm reeling, what in the world, in my head, the whole drive home, what in the world could be that small, could make that noise? So we get home, we get on my computer, we start doing research on what animal makes a noise like that, and we finally figured out what it was. That particular screaming noise belongs to the vixen fox. Apparently they make that scream during mating season. We were laughing so hard when we realized what they were. At first, we thought it was some woman high on meth screeching. Then maybe it's a bobcat. And then we go home and we find out that it's just some fox in heat. And now for the calm, soothing sounds of the vixen fox in mating season.